Welcome on board the Newstrack. I'm Rahul Kanwal. A court in Varanasi okaying the survey of the Gyanvapi Mosque. What happens next? That's my top focus on the Newstrack tonight.
Big boost for buried Mandir mission. This impacts India's past, present and future. Court orders Gyanvapi survey before 17th. Major blow to mosque panel. Interim victory for Hindu petitioners. Will survey now be allowed peacefully? Big focus on Newstrack.
Here's a quick look at the headlines we're tracking on the Newstrack. Allahabad High Court rejects plea to hold survey of 22 locked rooms inside the Taj Mahal. A big setback to the petitioner who was linked to the ruling party. Mumbai government set to bring an anti-conversion ordinance in Karnataka. Law to have provision for jail term up to 10 years for illegal conversions. Terrorists target Kashmiri Pandit in Balgam. Shoot at Tehsildar office employee. Victim succumbs to critical injuries in Srinagar. After heart-rending cries to defer the NEET exam, students seek intervention by Prime Minister Modi. RSS student wing ABVP joins in to support the students' demand. Astronomers unveil first wild and fuzzy image of the supermassive black hole at the center of the Milky Way galaxy. After tension and turbulence over a court-ordered survey at Varanasi's famous Gyanvapi Mosque to assess the claimed presence of a buried Hindu temple, a Kashi court today said the aborted survey must be completed by the 17th of May. The order is being seen as a setback to the mosque panel and a big boost to the Hindu petitioners who claim that the masjid sits on an ancient Hindu mandir.
Big win for Hindu petitioners in the Gyanvapi Mosque survey case. A Varanasi court has given the go-ahead to resume survey of the mosque. The court appointed one more special commissioner, Vishal Singh, along with existing commissioner Ajay Kumar Mishra for the survey. An assistant commissioner, Ajay Pratap Singh, has also been added to the team.
जांच होगी अगर किसी कारणवश ये लोग रोकते हैं तो ताला तोड़ करके जांच होगी और क्या कहा गया जब मुस्लिम पक्ष की तरफ से क्या दलील दी गई आप लोग जब मुस्लिम पक्ष के बारे में हम लोग कुछ नहीं मानते हम लोग अपने पक्ष के बारे में आप लोग खुश हैं आप डिसीजन से बिल्कुल बहुत बड़ी जीत हुई हम लोगों की जो चाह रहे थे वही हुआ
ताला खोलने और तोड़ने तक की जो आदेश है वो जारी कर दिए गए हैं 8 बजे से लेकर 11 बजे तक कमीशन कार्रवाई होगी जब तक पूरी नहीं हो जाएगी निरंतर चलती रहेगी 17 तारीख को रिपोर्ट पेश की जाएगी
Many local residents of Varanasi welcomed the verdict.
हम लोग खुशी हैं कि पक्ष में हमारे ही पक्ष में फैसला आएगा आप अंदर क्यों नहीं जाने दे रहे हैं आप अंदर जाइए वीडियोग्राफी करिए आपको क्या दिक्कत हो रहा है क्या डर लग रहा है आपको अगर आपको लग रहा है कि गलत है तो फिर सही है अगर आपका मस्जिद आप फिर डरते क्यों हैं
And so did the right-wing leaders.
ज्ञानवापी मामले में जिस प्रकार से माननीय कोर्ट ने जो आदेश दिया है बहुत ही सराहनीय मैं इसका सराहना करता हूं ये जो जिहादी मानसिकता के लोग हैं उनको सबसे बड़ा एक कालिख पूतने का काम किया और माननीय कोर्ट ने ये वो कर दिया कि जो उन्होंने कमेटी बनाई थी वो बिल्कुल सही था
The BJP, which has so far kept a distance from the controversy, has also welcomed the verdict.
The verdict in Gyanvapi case is a big vindication for those who are for Samvidhan and video survey and a big slap on the face of those who in the name of Gyanvapi were actually Samvidhan Papi.
Earlier, India Today spoke to the videographer who actually saw what was on the site.
कमल देखा और फूलों की लड़ियां देखी जो फूल से बने होते हैं, और ठीक सामने वाली दीवार पे अंदर की तरफ घंटा भी टंगा हुआ है।
The survey of the Gyanvapi Mosque has been allowed on a petition filed by 5 women demanding daily prayers at the Gaudi Shringar temple next to the masjid. Sangh Parivar outfits have often maintained Kashi and Mathura are the next goals after winning Ayodhya Ram Janmabhoomi dispute. Are the slew of petitions in Kashi and Mathura a prelude to another Mandir movement? With Preeti Chaudhary and Samarth Srivastava from Varanasi, Bureau Report, India Today.
So a green light has been given to a survey of the Gyanvapi Mosque. The big question is, what happens next? Will this effort stop at this survey, or will there be a clamor that the mosque be converted into a temple? Because before there was the Gyanvapi Mosque, there stood a temple there. Of that there can be no question. But should this old wound of history be opened afresh? Joining us on this broadcast, representing the ruling Bharatiya Janata Party at the centre, its national spokesperson Amit Malviya, squaring off against him, senior advocate and member of parliament of the Rajya Sabha KTS Tulsi. Vishnu Jain is a lawyer in the Gyanvapi case, also in the Mathura case, as also the Taj Mahal case. We've got Sharat Pradhan joining us for perspective from Lucknow. Hari Shankar Jain is an advocate in the High Court in Lucknow. He's representing the Hindu petitioners and heading the survey team at the Gyanvapi Mosque complex. I want to go across to Amit Malviya first, because it's important to understand the thinking within the BJP on the issue of the Gyanvapi Mosque. Anybody who's been to that mosque, read history, knows that before there was the mosque, there was a temple there, that there can be no question about. The question is this something the BJP actively wants to take up? When the Ayodhya judgment came out, there was a sense that all other such disputes would be left on the side. You wanted to focus on development. Do you now believe that reinstating the status of the Gyanvapi Mosque is something that is important for the BJP at the centre and in UP?
Rahul, this debate should not be about the BJP. This debate should be about India. India as a civilization. Any society that does not own up its history is doomed to repeat it. And that is exactly what we did for the last 7 decades, when distorting history became part of the Congress lastly, and the communists who often supported the Congress in the center and several other states, that they used history as a tool of propaganda, a tool to further their idea of secularism. And that is why you have the rift that you see in the society today. Why shouldn't Ayodhya have taken so long to resolve? Why have we not owned up that Gyanvapi Mosque was built over a temple, and similarly Mathura? Again,
but Mr. Malviya, that's a rhetorical answer to a very specific question. We'll deal with society in a moment. I'm asking you a straight question as the BJP spokesperson. Do you believe the time has come for the Gyanvapi Mosque to be turned and restored back into a temple? Is that what the BJP is pushing for?
I am saying that it is time to reconcile to our past. That should be done by the Hindus as well as the Muslims, and they have to realize that we have a shared past. They may have opted for a different religion because of these aggressors who demolished our temples and built these mosques as signs of oppression, but they are culturally Hindus and we share the same roots. Therefore, whether or not this Gyanvapi Mosque is restored to the original temple or not is something that we will know as we get along, but it is important to recognize that there is a past, and the past is that of these aggressors demolishing these Hindu temples and building mosques over it, and that too on the holiest shrines of Hindu, in the holiest city of the Hindus, namely Banaras and Mathura. Ayodhya, we've seen, was a long protracted battle where the Congress stood by the Muslim appellants against the Hindu interest, knowing fully well that Ayodhya is of significant importance. So what happens next? The answer is in the womb of the future, but for now it is important to reconcile and acknowledge our past, and that is what this step is towards.
KTS Tulsi, Amit Malviya on the show saying, forget the restoration of the mosque back into a temple. That's a question for later. At this moment, what the BJP is seeking, what Hindu Samaj is seeking, is that there must be an acknowledgement that the Gyanvapi Mosque is actually the Gyanvapi temple, and that and if anybody were to travel to that mosque, given the fact that there's a statue of Nandi there, given the fact that it's in the middle of a temple complex, it doesn't require stretching the imagination to come to the conclusion that it's a temple. There are enough visible signs that this was originally a temple complex. Amit Malviya is saying it's time that India acknowledge what happened during the Mughal era and that there stood a temple there.
Well, I wholeheartedly welcome the Supreme Court's order which directs continuation of the video inspection of Gyanvapi Mosque. There are several viewpoints with regard to the construction of the masjid, and some believe that in 18th century Maharani Holkar of Malwa kingdom got it built, but the fact is that the two religious institutions of a very high order share a boundary wall, and they must learn to live with one another. The temple, of course, seems to have been rebuilt several times in the course of history. In 1669, it is believed that Emperor Aurangzeb built the Gyanvapi Mosque, and then other historians believe that it was Akbar who got the masjid made, and Deen-e-Ilahi was a system of religious beliefs introduced by Akbar in 1582. But the remnants of the Hindu temple can be seen on the walls of the mosque. That is what is being claimed, but the Supreme Court has ordered the most reliable system of acquiring the truth, and that is the video of the inspection of the mosque while on the walls, wherever there appears to be a proof of the existence of the temple or non-existence of the temple, will all be considered later.
I want to go across to Atikur Rahman, renowned Islamic scholar, joining us on this broadcast. What Amit Malviya of the BJP is saying is that there must be an acknowledgement by Hindus and Muslims alike that the Gyanvapi Mosque was originally a temple. They're not pushing for the mosque to be turned back into a temple. Just this moment they're saying the whole purpose of surveying the mosque is to establish with videographic evidence that there once stood a temple where the Gyanvapi Mosque now stands.
You are asking me, Rahul?
Yes, Mr. Rahman, I am.
Rahul, he is trying to sail in two boats. If he is saying that there is no problem, then why you are creating one? After videography, what will be the next step? They will be claiming it. That will be problematic. That will be politicizing again the issue. The Hindus and Muslims will fight on it. The political parties will jump into it. In the presence of 1991 places of Kashi Tech, this is undone. This is not to be accepted. Rahul?
Let Amit Malviya respond that this won't end very obviously at the videography. The videography is the first step. Today you are saying what happens later, the future is in the womb, but once you know through videographic evidence, which will be established very clearly, that there was once a temple, you will say now it should be restored to the status of a temple. Everything around it is a temple, and therefore so should this be a temple.
Well, Rahul, you know, history is not a fable that everybody agrees on. History has to be viewed in a very scientific manner, and the ASI survey, the videography and everything else will bear out the fact that there was a Hindu temple that was demolished and a mosque was built over it. And anyway, there is nothing sacrosanct about a mosque, because mosque is a place of worship which can be demolished, and it has been done so in Saudi Arabia, in Mecca and Medina. Therefore, for the Muslims to insist that a mosque must continue there is actually root cause of the problem. If they acknowledge that it was built on a Hindu temple, that they must be magnanimous to acknowledge that we need reconciliation, particularly on the holiest sites of Hindu civilization, Banaras and Mathura. Also, it can't be a coincidence that a mosque just comes up right next to the most devout spot for the Hindus. It has happened in Mathura. The chhajja of the mosque is actually over the Garbhagriha of the Krishna Janmasthan. Now it has to be a devious, oppressive agenda of an aggressor who did that.
Let Atikur Rahman respond to it.
No, let me finish this,
yes.
Rahul. I don't know why Indian Muslims relate themselves to these aggressors, because they have nothing in common with these aggressors. In fact, they are Hindus who were converted probably at gunpoint and have been Muslims for the last 2-3 generations. But originally they are Hindus by culture. So the Indian Muslims should stop associating themselves with these aggressors and identify themselves as Indians first, who culturally share the same bond with the Hindus of this country. I think that approach will reconcile a lot of these differences these so-called clerics and Islamic scholars today claim to espouse.
Atikur Rahman, given that this is one of the holiest temple complexes of the Hindus and that you've got a mosque at its very entrance, Amit Malviya says is a message sent by history that this was a tool for oppression or a means of showing the dominance of the Mughal dynasty over the people of India, and therefore he says that given the significance of Kashi, of Ayodhya, of Mathura, therefore there is no harm in having this debate because there must be reconciliation.
Accept it, Rahul. Please come clean, Mr. Malviya. Please come clean on the issues. If you want to demolish this masjid and build a mandir, you come clean. You are in the government. You have the power. Repeal the 1991 Places of Worship Act. Amend it. And what you are saying is that the Muslims are trying to equate themselves with the Mughal rule. We have some kind of a heroic this thing of the Mughal rule. The Mughal period, the Middle Ages, Mr. Malviya, was an age of imperialist expansion. There was no constitution. There was no United Nations Human Rights Charter at that time. Whatever the Mughal and the Delhi Sultanate rulers did, how can you say that the present Muslim generation of India, also the Hindu generation, they are equating themselves to the Middle Ages? The Hindus and Muslims of India want to live in peace. You go by the law, sir. You repeal the 1991 places and make a long list. Whatever masjid you want to rebuild, your mandir, make a list, form a committee of experts, historians, Hindus, Muslims, go by the law. You have the parliament, you are under oath. You have the power to legislate upon. Why you are making the common Hindus and Muslims, the people of India, to fight on these issues?
Okay, let me put that question to Vishnu Jain. Why do this by proxy? You're projecting what happened in the Varanasi court today as a big victory for you and for the petitioners. But what's happening is clearly a violation of the People's Places of Worship Act of 1991, which says that religious places must stay as they were, and apart from Ayodhya, the status of other religious places cannot be altered, and therefore through this videography you are seeking essentially to dilute that law or to upturn it or to leave it meaningless.
See, Rahul, I want to put certain facts straight, because in this case it's not that the provisions of Places of Worship Act was not in the knowledge of the Honorable Court. The Anjuman Intizamiya had specifically raised the objection of the attraction of Places of Worship Act, and by 5th of April order of Varanasi Civil Court, this objection was rejected, and the Honorable Court gave a observation that the religious character of the property in question has to be determined. Against this order, the Muslim side, the Anjuman Intizamiya, went in appeal before the Allahabad High Court, and by an order dated 21st of April 2022, their petition was rejected. Now the point in issue is this, that Places of Worship Act is read in isolation by everyone in this country. Section 4 subclause 2 of the Places of Worship Act uses a word religious character. That what is the religious character of the property in question on 15th August 1947 will remain the same. For example, if I want to explain my conversation by an example, that if I enter a mosque and I put a idol there, the religious character of a mosque will not change. And vice versa, if someone enters into a temple and offers namaz, the religious character of the temple will not change. And to counter the to counter the point of Places of Worship Act, I have two more points to make, if you permit me.
Yes, yes, please go on. Go on.
Yes, I have, see, so far as the Kashi Vishwanath case is concerned, in 1983 the UP government has passed a special legislation declaring the entire property, declaring the disputed structure as the Jyotirling, and declaring that entire property west in the Jyotirling. Section 4 of the Kashi Vishwanath Act of 1983. So that happened prior to 1991. Apart from that, Deen Mohammed's case, civil suit number 62 of 1936. That time no political party was in existence. The British government gave an affidavit before the Honourable Court in Deen Mohammed's case, saying that this property does not have the religious character of a mosque, it is not a waqf. Deen Mohammed went in appeal before the Allahabad High Court, and in 1942 their appeal was rejected. And third point, 1997 6 SCC page 606, the three-judge bench judgment of the Honourable Supreme Court para 1 specifically notes that how this temple was demolished by the invaders. So the question is this, Rahul, that if a temple is demolished, it can never have a religious character of a mosque, as per Islamic law and as per Hindu laws.
If a temple is demolished, it can't have the religious characteristics of a mosque. Atikur Rahman wants to make a quick counter. Atik.
Rahul, Mr. Jain is going into the wordings of the 1991. What is the philosophy of the 1991 Places of Worship Act? The philosophy is the people of India are no more to go into all these ambiguities of the legalities of the dharma and religion and Islam and Mazhab. We want to live in peace, and that is why, apart from Ayodhya and Ram Temple, this was made. The philosophy of the Parliamentary Act suggests that no more grudges between the two major communities of India. Am I wrong, Rahul?
Let Amit Malviya come in on this. Atikur Rahman says, if you want to scrap the law, you have parliamentary majority. Why try and find different ways of diluting the provisions of the law? Just go out and scrap it. But what you're doing is essentially against the provisions of the Places of Worship Act.
Look, it is quite rich for Atikur Rahmani to speak about the philosophy of the 1991 Act. If he's so spellbound by the philosophy, why did the Muslims not hand over the site of Ayodhya immediately after that Act was passed, abiding by the philosophy of the Act? Obviously, because there was no such intention, and it continued in a protracted legal battle. And we just heard Mr. Jain highlight specifics of the law dating back to 1930s and 40s, and of course all the points that he has mentioned predate the 1991 Act that is being spoken about. Also, the 1991 Act has to be read for what is written in the Act. You cannot ignore the words and talk about philosophy because it does not suit you. The truth, Rahul, is that India has a past that is troublesome. There have been invasions by the Mughals who have thrust the Islamic faith and ideas over this country. We have accepted it. It's something that happened several decades ago. But it is important for us as a country to acknowledge that this is our shared past. And Muslims have as much a responsibility to do it as the Hindus have. And again, I repeat, Hindu temples are Jagrat places. They are places where it's believed that there is vibration and positivity. As far as mosques are concerned, they are places of congregation for worship. This point has been debated endlessly in the Ayodhya verdict, and it's perhaps time for the Muslims to be magnanimous and not insist on keeping Hindu sites under siege in the name of secularism or in the name of philosophy or whatever else they keep evolving every once in a while. The truth is that the Gyanvapi site is a Hindu site. It must be acknowledged. Mathura is a Hindu site, and so are several other places. But this reconciliation has to happen. And it's unfortunate that it's happening in 2022. Frankly, it should have happened in the first decade after independence. But Nehru and then his progenies, they made distorting history a part of their secular, so-called secular agenda. And they were supported by the communists in this, and that it has to be undone at some point in time if we have to have peace and tranquility and a society that stays together and grows together.
Sharad Pradhan, sitting in Lucknow, what do you make of this new controversy? It was earlier thought that when the Ayodhya judgment came out, that other issues from the past would stay in the past. But given the way this clamour is building, now videography being permitted, it will establish that there was a temple, because in fact there was a temple over there, and then there will be a clamour from Samaj that now the status of the mosque must be restored to that of a temple, because that's where a temple once stood, and this is in the Kashi Vishwanath complex. How can there be a mosque there?
Well, Rahul, is the question addressed to me?
Yes, it is.
Because your voice is terribly distorted. In fact, everybody's voice, there's something wrong with my audio. But anyway, what I feel about this whole thing is that this appears to me, it appears a typical BJP and its allies design to replay what they did in Ayodhya, where of course Ayodhya is distinct from Mathura and Kashi, because in Ayodhya there was no coexistence of a mosque and temple, and it was only on what existed there was only a mosque until 1949, when there was when it is alleged that some idols were placed inside, and thereafter everybody knows what happened. So this seems to be a complete replay of the events in Ayodhya, as I have seen them in the events happening in 80s, and today the fact that they've managed to have their way in Ayodhya, despite not being enough evidence of the temple having existed there earlier, because even Tulsidas never mentioned any existence of the temple there. But so there is every reason to believe today that they are in power. They may have their way even in Mathura and Kashi, and which is what they are trying to do. And what is being built is being systematically done only to forge a deeper divide between Hindus and Muslims, so that they can convert it into polarization of Hindu votes. Otherwise, there is no reason. As somebody rightly, I heard what I briefly heard, that somebody says, why don't you pass a law in the parliament and take it over? But the idea is to spread the word, to spread hatred, which is what it appears, and then make political capital out of it at the elections, which is what they have done.
You are alleging that the BJP wants to use this, stoke this fire now, let it simmer, build it up before the 2024 elections. I want to let Amit Malviya respond to that.
You know, I heard Sharad Pradhan, and people like him are actually root cause of the problem. He actually said that there was no evidence that there was a Hindu temple in Ayodhya. Can you believe it? People like him have existed on this planet who have been denying a Hindu temple for the longest time, when the Supreme Court, in a unanimous decision, has clearly said that there are overwhelming evidence to suggest that there was a Hindu temple that was demolished. So when you have people like Sharad Pradhan, and they represent the establishment that governed this country for 7 decades, that is where the problem lies. That is where the reconciliation does not happen. And Rahul, let me give you an example of Somnath. Somnath also had a history of invaders coming over and demolishing the temple several times over, subjugating people, and something that we have seen play out several times across this country, particularly the northern part of this country, because the invaders came right from the northern side of the hemisphere. It was restored. Today there is no controversy around Somnath at all. People go there, they have their religious beliefs, they practice their faith. It's a center for Hindus they are genuinely proud of, and rightly so. Why is it that there is a controversy around Ayodhya, Kashi and Mathura? Because there are people like Sharad Pradhan and several Muslim clerics, religious leaders and political ones who supposedly claim to be secular, including the Congress party and their allies, who foment trouble by instigating the Muslims and telling them that this is oppressive without telling them what their actual past or history is. It's time that we tell the Muslims of this country that the Hindus and the Muslims in this country shared a common past. We are culturally the same people, and what we see here is actually nothing but invaders destroying our combined culture. And that is the way go forward. That is the reconciliation we need. We don't need people like Sharad Pradhan anymore in this country. They are the ones who have ruined this country for 7 decades. And I'm glad the people have put them out to hang and dry in the last 7-8 years that the Congress and its allies are out of power, including journalists like him.
I want to go across to Harishankar Jain, who's the lawyer for the petitioners in this case. आपके हिसाब से जो वीडियोग्राफी हो रही है हरिशंकर जी, उसमें क्या निकल के आने वाला है? क्यों आपके हिसाब से ये जो पूरा सर्वे होने वाला है 17 मई से पहले इतना अहम है? खासियत क्या रहेगी? क्या निकल के आने वाला है आपके हिसाब से?
देखिए, सबसे पहले आपके सवाल का जवाब देने से पहले जो अतीकुर रहमान साहब ने अभी कहा है, मैं उससे इत्तेफाक रखता हूं कि जो प्लेसेज ऑफ वर्शिप एक्ट है ये रिपील होना चाहिए। और मालविया जी से मैं रिक्वेस्ट करता हूं कि शुड टेक ए स्टेप फॉर रिपीलिंग दिस लॉ। दिस इज ए ब्लैक लॉ, इट शुड बी रिपील्ड। नंबर 2, इफ यू गो बाय द हिस्ट्री, यू विल फाइंड इफ दिस एक्ट is applied, there is a Hindu temple on 15th August 1947 and puja was going on up to 1990. It is admitted fact. And in 1947, just before that, there is evidence of 16 persons in Deen Muhammad case when they are deposed before the court that we go and worship this and that. In that complex, that is settlement plot number 9130, which are claiming there is images of Goddess Sringar Gauri, of Lord Ganesh, Lord Hanuman, and several other visible and invisible deities. And that statement was not challenged by Muslims even in the High Court. So that evidence is proof that on 15th August 1947 and even thereafter up to 1990, there was puja was going on within the complex. And in 1990, Somnath Vyas was managing the Tekhana, which was actually a place of worship within temple complex. But the Muslims call it Tekhana because on the structure of Hindu temple, they have constructed a superstructure which they call Gyanvapi Mosque. Now, if videography takes place, you will find that in Tekhana and there is under Tekhana. Tekhane ke niche Tekhana hai. There is all Hindu temple. And several things will come out to prove the religious character of the building. And you kindly appreciate, the word is religious character. Mr. Atul Rahman and other Muslim fellow, they do not follow. They say, so now after Ayodhya, nothing will happen. Everything will happen. And we will take the recourse of law to get back all the religious places. Law says the religious character will not be changed. The burden is on the person who is claiming the religious character of the
Okay, so you're essentially reframing the debate to say that the religious character needn't be changed because the religious character suggests that this is essentially a temple on which a mosque has been superficially superimposed.
Yes.
And therefore, it doesn't violate the Places of Worship Act, Atikur Rahman, because the essential religious character, which if anybody actually goes to the Gyanvapi Mosque and you just walk around, you'd realize that there was once a temple and a mosque has been artificially placed there. So he says it doesn't violate the act.
That's it. Rahul, see, I am so thankful to Mr. Harishankar Jain that he is coming out in a very, very, very clean fashion. He is showing the true colors of a Hindutva, of a bigoted India, what we are about to be dumped into it. Herein lies the philosophy of the 1991 Places of Worship Act, Rahul. You repeal it. He is so rightly telling. He is in fact requesting Mr. Amit Malviya that use your parliamentary, this thing, majority, the brute majority, repeal it, because this is a violation of a parliamentary act, the temple of democracy. What are we demanding? Besides, Mr. Amit Malviya, have you left any Muslim leadership in this country? You are asking that the Muslims should be magnanimous in their approach. Who will show? I, Mr. Owaisi, the All India Muslim Personal Law Board, you recognize no Muslim. All Muslims to the BJP and the RSS fellows are jihadis. We are atanpadis. We have no meaning. We are second-class citizens, sir. Who will show the magnanimity? Tell me. What are you talking about?
Okay, I want to show our viewers what happened in the Taj Mahal hearing today. An attempt to get the Taj Mahal's locked rooms open to see if they contain Hindu idols has been soundly rejected by the Allahabad High Court. The Allahabad High Court rejected the petition for the opening of these 22 rooms of the monument and said, let historians decide the truth about the Taj Mahal. Earlier, the court slammed the petitioner and asked them not to make a mockery of the PIL system. The petitioner stated before the two-judge bench that citizens deserve to know the truth, henceforth allowing him to go and unravel what's inside the locked rooms. However, the bench took a dig at him and said that tomorrow he might even ask permission to see what's inside their chambers. The court said that an order for performing a specific statutory duty only gets issued when rights have been infringed. The high-voltage campaign that rode on the back of claimed remnants of a Shiva temple inside the Taj Mahal hit a wall today, with the High Court judge not just throwing out the plea but giving the petitioner a piece of his mind.
याचिका दी है जो मैंने उसमें बहुत सिंपल सी मांग रखी है कि उन जो 22 कमरे हैं जो विवाद के केंद्र हैं, समय समय पे उन्हीं कमरों को लेकर विवाद होता रहता है। वही 22 कमरे, जो भी 22 कमरे हैं उसके नीचे क्या है एक बार सामने कर दीजिए। मैं तो बहुत सिंपल सी मांग कर रहा हूँ। ना मैं इस मांग को लेकर गया हूँ कि वो शिव मंदिर है, ना मैं इस मांग को लेकर गया हूँ कि वो तेजो महल है, ना मैं ये कह रहा हूँ कि मैं इससे भी इनकार नहीं कर रहा हूँ कि ताजमहल नहीं है। मैं कह रहा हूँ कि ठीक है, जो भी चीजें हैं मुझे उसकी कोई प्रश्न नहीं उठाना है। बस मेरी बात इतनी सी है कि वो जो 22 कमरे हैं उसको एक बार सार्वजनिक कर दिया जाए, क्योंकि विवाद वो सदा के लिए खत्म हो जाए।
Vishnu Jain, you've been involved in this case as well, and what happened at the Allahabad High Court is very direct, asking the petitioner to do an MA, do a PhD, do some research, and roundly throwing that petition out of the window.
You are absolutely right, Rahul, and see, all these forums are misused, and therefore the forum for all these things is the civil court. If you will see, if you will analyze all these petitions, they are filed in Mathura Civil Court, they are filed in Taj, in Agra Civil Court and in Varanasi Civil Court, because the original jurisdiction for all these petitions lies with the Civil Court. If someone will file a petition for I don't know whatever purpose before the Honorable Allahabad High Court or any High Court, such kind of observations are bound to come. Because as per the CPC, for all these things, the original jurisdiction lies before the Civil Judge Senior Division. And therefore, if you will analyze all my cases, everything is filed before the Civil Court. And no order, no petition has been dismissed. The Taj Mahal suit has been admitted. The Mathura suit is pending in appeal before the District Court. The judgment is to be pronounced on 19th of May. So far as Varanasi case is concerned, all the 7 cases are admitted because all these things have to be filed before the Civil Court.
You know, your critics will say, Amit Malviya, that this is a weapon of mass distraction at a time when inflation is inching up, at a time when interest rates are going up, at a time when economic growth is being challenged. The government of the day is finding diversionary measures to keep people engrossed and engaged so that real issues of the economy, real issues of what's happening to food prices, what's happening to inflation, what's happening to fuel prices, for example, aren't taken up, that you're basically engaging in a mass game of distraction.
Rahul, I urge you to call for a debate tomorrow on all the issues that you've listed, from inflation to unemployment to jobs to fuel prices, and I'll be happy to come on your show and tell you exactly what the government has done. It is not for the government to use these cases which are of significant cultural and historical importance as distraction. You can't call them distractions. These are not distractions. These are about our existence. They are as important to us as getting food on the table. Ram and roti have to go together. It can't be an exclusion of each other. So let's not accuse the government of distracting, because for the last 7 decades, when these matters were hushed under the carpet. It's not as the economy boomed, it's not as if our per capita income is $40,000. No, it isn't. So the governments before us who claim to be secular, namely the Congress and its allies, actually subjugated the Hindu interest and humiliated them culturally and did not even give them economic development.
This is not a distraction, it's a crucial cultural and historical issue. We are dealing with the economy, says Amit Malviya. We're trying to fight inflation, but these are important issues that need to be taken up as well. Final words, Atikur Rahman, I'm out of time.
Yeah, in fact, I agree with Mr. Amit Malviya that this is a soft approach, Rahul, of the Congress and the other parties, that this is a destruction with the various social issues. No. The harder approach I am taking is, this is a Hindutva Rashtra, a bigoted state, a theocracy in the making, like Pakistan. It is not at all on the social issues. The RSS and the Manuvadi thinking is to take India into this bigotry. They want to declare as soon as possible India into a Hindu Rashtra. Come what may, no price, no petrol, no food, no jobs. Hell with the people. Only Hindu Rashtra is their supreme ideology.
Well, it's also in some ways incumbent on the media to ensure, as we've been trying, that it's not just these issues of the Gyanvapi Mosque, the Taj Mahal, but also inflation that are taken up, and we've been doing that. We'll continue to do that. We'll call Amit Malviya back for a discussion on what's happening with the economy very soon. But I want to thank our guests, Vishnu Jain, Hari Shankar Jain, KTS Tulsi, Atikur Rahman, Sharad Pradhan and Amit Malviya for joining me on the Newstrack. This is a debate that you hear a lot more about, an issue that will build in the weeks and months to come. Make no mistake about it.